All right. Another podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wealth and Wellness Report podcast. Today, we're going to talk about clarity. Something that I've been working on quite a bit is this new framework that I hope will help everybody take all of this noise, all of this information, and then funnel it down into decisive action. So let's just get right into it today, because I've got a lot to say about this topic. Everybody that I've talked to and everybody that I work with seems to have a lot of trouble with putting together a decisive and clear and concise framework for making decisions, for developing a topic, a product, a project. So what we're going to do here today is talk a little bit about why you don't need more information. You need clarity. And that realization alone puts you ahead of most people who are stuck in endless consumption loops. You know, convincing themselves that one more podcast, one more framework, one more opinion will finally give them permission to just act, but it won't. The truth is that clarity doesn't arrive through accumulation. It arrives through the subtraction of materials, through removing the noise, through eliminating misaligned options, and through deciding what factors are at play here and what matters, and being willing to disappoint everything else. And most people are not overwhelmed because life is complex. I think they're overwhelmed because they haven't chosen a direction. And without a direction, every option feels equally heavy. It's the overload. And then the analysis paralysis. You know, and I've spent years watching capable, intelligent, well-resourced people stall at the exact same point. Not at the beginning and not at the finish line, but right before they make a commitment. They circle the decisions. They research endlessly, and they wait for certainty that never, ever comes. And while they wait, time moves forward without them, and the opportunity expires. The energy will fade, and confidence will erode. And what started as being careful, like what started as being like careful, you're slowly becoming regretful, and it's disguised as responsibility, which, you know, is a really big deal. And, you know, as we go through this, you'll find that disconnection is the real enemy here. Disconnection from intuition, disconnection from values, disconnection from the environment, disconnection from consequences. When people feel disconnected, they end up hesitating. They outsource the decisions, they defer the ownership, and they will end up hiring cheap transactional pros, you want to call them that, who optimize for speed and convenience instead of like the long-term outcome here. And then they're surprised when the results see hollow stress, when they see the results become hollow, or they're misaligned, or they're stressful. Humans are not neutral containers. They shape behavior, they shape mood, health, and relationships. And businesses are not just income streams. They are massive systems that either amplify or drain the people inside of them or who are working with them. And investments are not numbers. They're just not numbers on a spreadsheet. They are trajectories that carry momentum forward or backward over time. So when you treat these things as isolated systems or isolated transactions instead of integrated systems, friction shows up everywhere, and stress increases, decision fatigue sets in, and then guess what happens? Progress will slow down. This is where clarity becomes the most valuable asset that you can build, because not clarity, and I'm not saying clarity as motivation, clarity is hype, and clarity is orientation. Knowing where you are, where you're going, and why it matters is everything. Knowing what to say and what not to do. Knowing which decisions require speed and which requires patience, and knowing when comfort is serving you and when it's quietly shrinking your life. I'm working on putting together a guidebook for this. It's going to be an illustrative and interactive PDF. It'll be an asset that we can all use as a resource for us to help develop these decision-making frameworks. Alan Savory wrote an amazing book called The Holistic Management Framework, and he talks exclusively about how to develop a framework of decision-making that's based on a feedback loop. And incorporating that feedback loop into our daily lives will not only help bring about clarity because we're accumulating and procuring the data that's coming back to us, but then we reapply that data into a more informed decision. And decision in and decision in will help develop more awareness and ultimately more clarity. Comfort is seductive because it feels safe in the short term. It asks nothing of you. It requires no courage, no friction, no exposure, but comfort ultimately has a cost. It charges interest too. You pay for it in the lost momentum, in the missed opportunities, and the gradual erosion of confidence. And over time, comfort lowers your tolerance for stress. Tasks that once felt manageable begin to feel heavy. Conversations you should have end up getting postponed, and decisions that could unlock growth get delayed. Your world slowly gets smaller, and stability doesn't come from avoiding that pressure. Stability ultimately comes from the capability, from knowing that you can handle uncertainty, conflict, and complexity without collapsing. Capability is built through action, not contemplation. Imperfect action will always trump the analysis, the data. You're just looking at things over and over and over and over and over again. At some point, you're going to have to take the leap. And that's ownership. And through ownership, not just reassurance, you're going to make better decisions as you go along. Through making decisions and learning from them, not waiting for perfect conditions is going to really help your mindset here. I didn't learn this from theory. I learned it from consequence. I am driven by action. I cannot sit around and dilly-dally. It's just not part of my it's just not part of me. And I know a lot of people don't have this ability because it's like a muscle. You have to work on it. You have to go in and you have to train that muscle all of the time until you get really good at taking action and becoming aware of when to take action. And I learned all of that through consequence. I made early mistakes trusting the wrong people. I overpaid. I missequenced projects. I navigated high stakes decisions without a true advocate or a mentor or a coach. I dealt with professionals who were transactional, not fiduciary. They closed deals and then disappeared when the real work began. Those experiences taught me something foundational in all of this. Most people don't need another service provider. They need a steward. They need an ally. They need somebody next to them who is willing and capable to provide instrumental feedback. I love using the analogy of changing a car tire. I say this all of the time to everybody that I work with if they have trouble making decisions. If you don't know how to change a car tire, well, you find somebody who does. And then they go in and they change the car tire while you're watching them intently, watching every move, every motion. You are aware and taking the protracted and thoughtful observation into account. And then when they're done, they take it all apart again. And then they ask you to do it. Now, your job is to follow what they did to the T. It's not rocket science. Take action, get in there and start changing that car tire. But here's the catch. Here's the most important part of this. That mentor, that person who's training you, is actually sitting there right with you as you change the car tire. They're watching every move and giving you instrumental feedback on what to do and what not to do. That empowers you to continue to move forward until you've completely finished changing that car tire. Now that car tire is done. He's going to ask you, or she's going to ask you, to take that thing apart again and then do it again without them there. Eventually, you're going to get proficient. In a true steward sees the whole system. They care about second and third order effects here. They slow things down when speed would create risk, and they accelerate when hesitation would create loss. They carry responsibility, and responsibility is everything here, not just liability. That's what a fiduciary does. They understand that wellness, environment, money, time, and legacy are not separate conversations. They are one complete ecosystem. It's like an organism. This is why clarity accelerates execution. When priorities are clear, decisions simplify. Simple scales. Not because they're easy, but because the trade-offs are obvious. You stop negotiating with that fear. You stop crowdsourcing the judgment. You stop fueling that ego, and you stop waiting for confidence and start building competence. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action here. It is a byproduct of it. I've watched people burn out trying to outwork misalignment, grinding harder in the wrong direction, optimizing tactics while ignoring the structure, consuming more information while avoiding the commitment. Eventually, the body revolts, creativity dries up, and then the motivation phase. So many of you are so freaking tied up in motivation. Discipline trumps motivation, and you need to learn how to use that muscle. So you got to get in the gym and you got to work it out, because ultimately motivation fades, and they wonder what went wrong. Nothing went wrong. The system was never aligned. And alignment is a mindset trick. A mindset trick that we all need to, institute into our brains. It's all about discipline. It's the result of honest evaluation, clear sequencing, and decisive action. It's choosing depth over breadth, quality over volume, stewardship over transaction. It's understanding that fewer, better decisions outperform frantic motions every single time. This is why the future belongs to people who think holistically and act decisively. Going back to that holistic decision-making framework from Alan Savory. In a world where AI and automation have commoditized execution, creativity, judgment, perspective, and taste have become the differentiators here. Tools can execute instructions. They cannot imagine. They cannot intuit. They cannot care. Human creativity is no longer optional here. It is the new currency. And creativity is not just an art. Creativity is the problem solving. It's the adaptation. It's seeing a path when others see a frickin' wall. And it's redesigning scope without compromising quality. It's structuring solutions when capital is tight and conditions are uncertain. In real estate, or in construction, or just in business in general, the people who win are not the ones doing things the old way. They are the ones willing to rethink assumptions and design outcomes intentionally. You've felt stuck, you're overwhelmed, you're disconnected, and it's not just because you're incapable, it's because your environment, inputs, and decisions are completely misaligned. And misalignment doesn't require more effort. It requires recalibration. Think about that. It requires stepping out of noise and back into responsibility. And personal responsibility is that is the gasoline. That is the fuel. That is the catalyst in all of this, you guys. You have to take personal responsibility for your actions. If you screw up, own it. If you win, own it. Whatever it is, just get in there and know from the bottom of your soul that if you don't take the personal responsibility into account, you're going to be chasing a ghost for the rest of your life. You need to regain agency. You stop reacting. You need to stop reacting and start leading yourself first. So that way you stop drifting and then you start directing. Life will become easier. It'll become quieter, and you'll become more grounded. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I guess you guys can probably hear in my voice because I get fired up when I work around folks that are just as driven to take action, even if it's imperfect action. They know that taking all of that noise and all of those objections and funneling it down into decisive action is going to move the needle. And once you take personal responsibility around that, things will just flow. Just watch the universe conspire collectively with you. And don't let fear get loud, because fear is loud. Ego is loud. Intuition, though, is quiet. It lives in the body, not in the mind. It doesn't argue with you. It nudges. Most people drown it out with stimulation, comparison, and constant input. It could be anything. It could be doom scrolling on Instagram. It could be cocktails in the middle of the night. It could be anything that's going to impact your momentum and your flow and your focus. That is constant input that you need to be careful of. Relearning how to hear that signal is one of the most important, valuable skills you can develop. Clarity requires space. It requires the space to think, to reflect, to feel. And that's why your environment matters. Your home, your workspace, the people you surround yourself with. All of it reinforces identity. Environment shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results, and results shape belief. This is the work of going pro. This is what it means to go from amateur night to full-on professional. Of ending amateur hour, of deciding you're done negotiating with comfort, done outsourcing judgment, done waiting for permission. Going pro doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means that you have to be accountable. It means choosing growth over ease and alignment over familiarity. When people make this shift, something subtle but very powerful happens inside of us. Decisions stop feeling heavy, and then energy returns. Your confidence will end up becoming stabilized, and you'll start to build momentum. And there's nothing more important in business than having wind behind your sail. Momentum builds. It stops chasing certainty and starts building in that capability. This is important. When you move forward with calm determination instead of just this frantic urgency to get things done, when you are making stuff up to do on your list just so you feel busy, that's absolutely ridiculous. And that's what this work is all about. It's not hype. I'm not trying to teach you how to hustle. It's about calming down the noise, and it's about getting clear. It's about perspective and stewardship. Building systems, whether it's in your home, in your business, in your investment, and making sure that it lives on beyond you. That support is everything. And who you are becoming instead of who you used to be is why we're here. And this is why you're listening to this right now. The cost of inaction is totally real here, you guys. The time is lost. Time lost is unrecoverable. Momentum decays quietly, and regret will compound. Doesn't have to be in that direction, but movement restores your power. One aligned decision can collapse years of hesitation, and one clear commitment can change your entire trajectory in life. And clarity isn't just it doesn't happen only in a single moment. Clarity is not just a moment, it's a practice. Consider it a filter you return to, okay? Before every major decision you make, a way of orienting yourself when things feel noisier or when you get stuck. When you build that practice, everything changes, not just overnight, but permanently. That is the framework that I'm speaking of here. Taking this funnel of noise and objections and funneling it into decisive action. This is the work that I'm talking about. And so here's my invitation, you guys. This is the invitation. And this is where forward motion begins. And here's the part most people don't want to hear, but they freaking have to hear this. They need to. The reason clarity feels so elusive for so many is because clarity demands personal responsibility, and responsibility is so uncomfortable. Clarity removes all of the excuses. It removes the ability to hide behind not enough information or bad timing or waiting for the market. But when you're clear, you see exactly what you should do next. And that puts the burden of action squarely back on you. And that's why people unconsciously avoid clarity, because confusion feels safer than commitment. Does that resonate with you? This shows up everywhere. In business, people chase tactics instead of asking whether the business model actually fits life they want to live. In real estate, they obsess over price instead of trajectory. In construction, they focus on finishes instead of function, flow, and long-term maintenance. In life, they change productivity instead of alignment. This world is all based on your state, how you vibrate in the world, and projecting that into the universe. All of it is the same pattern, optimizing the surface while ignoring the foundation. And so when the foundation is weak, everything feels harder too than it needs to be. Decisions will feel heavy and progress feels slow. Motivation feels inconsistent and people start blaming themselves, thinking something is wrong with them. And it's not. Nothing is wrong with them. They're just building misalignment and confusion and a pattern. Pattern is important. Pattern recognition is extremely important in all of this. Alignment is about doing what feels good in that moment. If you feel aligned, and you'll feel good. It's a vibration. There's a connection there. And I hope this clarity guide that I'm developing is going to help with those who feel disconnected, who have the inability to look at it from a 30,000 foot level and understand deeply why they're not taking action, decisive action, action that's impactful. It ultimately is doing what is honest. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest about capacity. We have to be honest about our priorities. We have to be honest about trade-offs. And we have to be honest about whatever season that we're in, because life is full of chapters. Some seasons require patience. Others require decisiveness. The problem is that most people apply patience when action is required and urgency when patience would serve them better. So being self-aware here is what will help you in the long run. And getting to know yourself is what is going to help you in the long run. You know, I've always said that entrepreneurship isn't the creation of service or products or goods. It's the development and the cultivation of the human spirit, of the soul. Clarity helps you tell the difference. One of the most damaging myths people carry is that certainty should precede action, and it doesn't. Certainty follows action. Confidence follows evidence. Evidence follows movement, and movement follows decisions. And decisions will create the clarity. You cannot skip those steps though. When people try, they end up stalling and or reverting back to making the wrong decisions over and over and over and over again. When people keep trying that, they will stall. It happens every single time. And this is why analysis paralysis is probably something that you guys hear quite a bit. Analysis paralysis is something that's made up. You make it up in your head. You're so, and it's so common among high performers, believe it or not. Intelligent people can always find another angle to analyze or another scenario to consider, another risk to mitigate. Intelligence without clarity becomes a liability, you guys. It turns it into that hamster wheel, overthinking. Overthinking turns into inaction, and inaction turns into self-doubt. You see this pattern recognition here? You see how these things end up snowballing and turning completely out of control? And if you're not self-aware, you can be spending hours, days, weeks, even years trying to figure this stuff out. Self-doubt is rarely about ability. It's about broken trust with yourself. Every time you delay a decision you should make, you weaken that trust. Every time you avoid a conversation you should have, you weaken it even further. And over time, your nervous system learns that you won't follow through and it just stops offering you energy. Have you noticed that when there's clarity in something and you're driven by it, whatever it is that you're focused on, whether it's your business or your fitness or your family or your friendships or whatever, when you achieve clarity, there's this instant burst of energy. It's momentum. That is momentum. That is inertia moving you forward in life. And that's why momentum feels magical when it comes back to you. It's not, and the magic, God, you guys probably heard this a million times on the internet, but the magic that you seek is in the work that you're avoiding. I love that one. And it's not just magic. It's trust that you're rebuilding every action at a time. So think about it. This is also why small aligned actions matter than big dramatic gestures, right? People think transformation requires massive leaps, but it doesn't. It requires consistent evidence that you do what you say you'll do, that you face discomfort instead of negotiating with it, and that you choose growth even when it costs you ease. The Kaizen way is a beautiful Japanese framework that articulates this in detail. One small step can create everlasting change in your life. One little thing. It could be anything. Think about it. Like, I'm going to get up in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you do that with the intention of trying to wake up earlier. Like, the ultimate goal might be 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning so that you can get your work done or go work out or whatever. Making a small change is going to create that snowball in the right direction, because ease is seductive. If you think about it, growth is demanding, but ease is seductive. And growth gives you back, gives back, like you get energy back in spades ultimately. And ease takes it. Ease takes it away from you. Comfort takes it away from you. The people who build lasting wealth, meaningful environments, resilient businesses, and grounded lives all share one thing in common. You guys know what it is? Guess. Take a wild guess. They stop playing small games. They stop looking for the shortcut. They stop treating big decisions casually. They stop making small decisions casually. Small decisions carelessly. They understood that everything compounds, including avoidance. Compounding works both ways. Clarity compounds into momentum. Momentum compounds into confidence. Comfort compounds as well. And eventually, those things create a ceiling that feels impossible to break through. Breaking through that ceiling doesn't require a new personality. It requires a new standard, a decision to operate differently, to stop being reactive, and to stop defaulting to cheap transactional bullshit. Think about that. To stop asking, what's the fastest or easiest option here? And start asking, what's the most aligned and sustainable one? Or regenerative. I think there's a big difference between sustainability, where things just stay the same, something's sustained, versus regeneration, where there's energy being created, where there's a better flow because of the action. That is regeneration, when things get better over time. And this is where the idea of stewardship really matters. Stewardship is long-term thinking in a short-term world. Everybody wants that quick freaking fix. It's choosing outcomes over the optics, and substance over appearance, impact over applause. Stewardship asks, what does this decision create 5 years from now? 10 years from now? For my family, for my health, for my environment, for my legacy. All of my clients, everybody that I work with, and we've been doing this for years, I always ask everybody, let's start 15 years from today and work our way backwards. What does that look like in your head? How does that impact your planning? How does that look like for you? And it's about legacy here. And legacy is not about ego. It's about responsibility across time. It's understanding the decisions you make today will ripple forward, shaping experiences for people you may never meet. Planting that tree that you know you'll never sit underneath when it's mature. That awareness changes how you move. It slows impulsive behavior and it sharpens intentional action. It's a superpower when you're able to look ahead through time. And I think that's why farmers and people who develop dynamic systems in the environment are so successful, and they're so knowledgeable about themselves and what will end up happening in the future. It's like they have a magic ball and they're just telling you what's going to happen because they've tuned into that feedback loop, that holistic management and that holistic decision-making framework. When people adopt this lens, they stop chasing quick wins that create long-term headaches. They stop cutting corners that come to, they just come back to you, and they cost more. They'll stop undervaluing guidance and overwhelming convenience. They stop confusing price with value. Value is what holds up under pressure, and value is what remains when conditions change. Value is what compounds quietly while others end up just chasing the trend. And this is why environments built with intention feel super different. Homes that are designed with wellness in mind don't just look better, they function better. So you walk into a space and you're like, holy shit, like I feel so good in this space. Why? It's because it was intentionally designed to help you feel better. It's amazing. Biophilics, thermodynamics, so many different elements that you can incorporate within the built environment that'll make you feel really good when you walk into those spaces. And they reduce stress. They support routines. They create flow instead of friction. The same principle can be applied to your business, to your portfolio, and to your life. When structure supports values, discipline becomes easier. When systems reinforce priorities, consistently stops feeling forced. When decisions are aligned, motivation becomes less relevant because action feels natural. This is also why creativity is essential, not optional here. Creativity is not decoration, it's adaptation. It's the ability to respond intelligently to things when conditions change. How fast you're able to adapt and evolve and change is huge. In construction, nothing ever goes exactly to plan. How many of you have done a project to spec exactly how you wrote it out? Probably none of you, because materials shift, conditions reveal themselves, and timelines will adjust ultimately. The teams that succeed are not the ones who rigidly cling to the blueprint. I love the saying that plans are indispensable because the map is never the territory. They're the ones, those people who cling to those blueprints, they're the ones who can think on their feet without compromising their integrity. In business and investing, the same principle applies. Markets shift, financing tightens, opportunities evolve. The people who win are not the ones waiting for perfect conditions. You know, they're the ones who can structure they're the ones who can structure solutions when capital is either constrained or the fear is super high. Creativity is your leverage. You know, for those who do creative finance and real estate, know this. You guys are able to put together a solution that's going to be beneficial to not only the seller, but the buyer. And to do that in a way that's non-traditional, that helps solve the problem, is why so many people are so successful in that space. They know when to pivot, they know when to shift, and they know how to solve a problem. Creativity is leverage. As technology accelerates today, execution becomes cheaper and way faster. What becomes rare is your judgment and perspective and your taste. The ability to see the whole system and make decisions that honor both present and, both present constraints and future outcomes. This is human work, and it cannot be automated, in my opinion. And this is why the future belongs to strategists, stewards, and builders who understand these systems. They're not just tools, they're systems. You can guide others through complexity instead of selling certainty that they can't guarantee. You know, who value trust over volume and depth will always overreach those who don't. If you feel called to do this work, it's not accidental. It means you're ready to stop outsourcing the clarity, and you're ready to stop drifting, and ready to take responsibility for direction and not just lackluster effort. Clarity does not eliminate the risk. It never does. It makes the risk intelligible. It helps you choose which risks are worth taking and which ones are just distractions. It allows you to move forward with calm resolve instead of anxious urgency. Did you guys see the movie Free Solo with Alex Honnold? When he climbed El Cap with no ropes? He climbed El Cap with ropes for years before jumping onto that wall without a rope. Think about that. Certainty, clarity, it's everything. And when you move that way, something profound ends up happening. Life will feel quieter, and it will probably feel more fulfilling ultimately. Life feels quieter, not because there's less to do, but because you're no longer arguing with yourself about what ultimately matters. That internal alignment frees enormous energy. That energy is what fuels execution, not motivation, not pressure, and it's all about alignment. This is the work of becoming a 10.0 version of yourself, not through perfection, but through the integrity of it all, through doing the hard things you are avoiding, through having those conversations with yourself that you've postponed, through making the decisions you've circled around about over and over and over again. Every season of growth asks the same questions in a different form. Are you willing to trade comfort for capacity? If the answer is yes, clarity will meet you halfway. If the answer is no, life will keep presenting the same freaking lessons until you're ready. It's that hamster again, on the wheel. The invitation here is simple, you guys, but it's not easy. Stop waiting for the certainty. Stop collecting those opinions. Stop negotiating with fear or yourself. Choose alignment. Choose responsibility. Choose to go pro. You know you want to go pro. It's in your soul. You know you want to do things at high levels. Everybody does ultimately. Everybody wants to be successful at whatever it is that you do. Choose to go pro. Because once you do, momentum will follow. And once momentum returns, everything else becomes possible. I'm hoping that y'all found that extremely motivating, but also, more importantly, resonating. Hopefully it resonates with you and you can take action in your lives. And if you need a little help, be on the lookout. I'm going to have this clarity guidebook out for everybody. It's going to be a really great source. I know I'll be using it, and I hope you do too. So, another episode of the Wealth and Wellness Report podcast, you guys. This one's all about clarity, and we'll see you on the next one.